Hello everyone and welcome to today's Wild Rift guide. In today's guide we're taking a look at the Sheriff of Piltover, Caitlyn. Caitlyn is a long-range AD marksman that is played in the dual lane. She is a strong early game bully because of her long-range auto attacks and abilities, and she also scales really well into the mid and late game as a crit AD carry, using her headshots and abilities to deal a lot of damage. Taking a quick look through Caitlyn's build, you want to build items that give you attack damage, attack speed, and critical strike chance so that your auto attacks and your abilities can do a lot of damage. For the first item, we have Infinity Edge. Really great first item for Caitlyn. Gives you that early attack damage, which will be really helpful when farming minions and also when trading in the lane phase. And also you get a little bit of critical strike chance as well, or the critical rate. And then the Infinity passive, the critical strikes, deal 230% damage instead of 200%, so it just allows your crits to deal that little bit of extra damage. Then after that, you want to go for more attack speed items. Static Shiv is a great one, gives you attack speed, gives you critical rate, also gives you a little bit of movement speed as well. And the great thing about Static Shiv is it has a energized passive, which when moving and attacking will generate energized attacks. And then you have the Shiv Lightning, which is the Static Shiv version of the energized attacks, which will allow the Static Shiv to deal a bonus damage and also bounces between a few enemies. And you also have another energized item with rapid fire cannon. The critical rate and attack speed is still there with the movement speed, but this time with rapid fire cannon you get to deal bonus magic damage again, but you also gain more attack range. Now already Caitlyn has incredibly long attack range, so on top of rapid fire cannon as well, you can auto attack from really far away. For the boots, most of the time you want to go for the Gluttonous Greaves. Gives you that physical vamp that you need in the early game, because most of the time you don't go for Bloodthirster until the last item. You can go for more defensive boots if you need to as well, like the armor boots or magic resist boots, depending on the situation of the game. And then for the boots upgrade, you can go for stasis. You can also go for proto belt as well if you need it. Just gives you that little bit of an extra dash. Then at this point of the game, you want to go for Mortal Reminder, just to give you a bit of armor penetration, because when you reach that third or fourth item power spike, this is when enemies will start to build a lot of armor, so you need the armor penetration to help you go through some of them tanks. And you also have the passive as well, which allows you to deal grievous wounds as well. So that means that if the enemy team has any sort of healing, Olaf, Nami, Sona, any champions like that, if you hit an enemy champion, the healing on them will be reduced by quite a bit. And if the enemy's below 50% health, it will also be increased as well. So it's a very nice item for Caitlyn. And then, as mentioned, the last item, Bloodthirster, just another crit rate item. So with all these four items, Infinity Edge, Static Shiv, Rapid Fire Cannon, and Bloodthirster, you'll be able to get 100% crit rate. And you also have the Blood Swarm passive as well, which allows you to overheal, so you get a lot of physical vamp. So the boots helps you a little bit in the early game, get a little bit of physical vamp to help you stay alive, and then the Bloodthirster as well just allows you to get that late game physical vamp up and available. For the runes, Conqueror is a great rune for Caitlyn. You auto attack quite a lot, you use your abilities quite a lot. Most of the time you will be landing your abilities, so it just allows you to stack Conqueror very quickly. And then when you get the 5 stacks, you'll just be able to deal bonus AD damage. Hunter Vampirism, you gain physical vamp, and you also gain extra AD as well and physical vamp every time you get a unique takedown. So that's 5 stacks that you can get with 5 unique takedowns. Same with Hunter Titan as well. Every unique takedown, this time you gain health and tenacity. You also gain a little bit of max health at the start of the game. And then for the last one, we have Sweet Tooth. Sweet Tooth is still a pretty good rune as well, even after the changes. Increases the honey fruit healing when you go back and when you walk through the river, and you also gain that little bit of extra gold. And then for the summon spells, we have Flash and we have Barrier. You can change this to Exhaust if you really want to. Exhaust is a pretty good rune as well for AD carries, but most of the time you want to go for Barrier just to get that little bit of extra shield. So that's everything with the items, runes, and spells. Let's head on to the abilities. First up, let's take a look at Caitlyn's passive, which is Headshot. Every 6 attack fires a headshot, dealing bonus physical damage, and trapped or netted targets as well from the second ability and the third ability will also trigger Headshot. That has double the range. And attacking enemies from the bush just builds up Headshot twice as fast. So you can tell by the indicator just below Caitlyn's mana bar how many auto attacks you've had. Every single time you auto attack, you can see that you stack up the stacks of the passive, and then when you see the red one right at the end, that's how you know your next auto attack will be a headshot. So there you go, you can see that is a headshot. And then again, if you're in a bush, it will attack twice as fast. So all you need is 3 auto attacks, and then you can do a headshot. This is the same though for trapped enemies. You can see where trapped enemies are. You can use this to auto attack, or even netted enemies as well. You can also auto attack to deal bonus damage with the headshot. For the first ability, we have Piltover Peacemaker, which fires a narrow piercing bullet that deals physical damage, and hitting an enemy expands the bullet but reduces subsequent damage by 40%. And it always deals full damage to trapped or netted enemies. So you can see that it is quite narrow, but you can extend the range of the first ability. So if I hit it on this target dummy, it will extend to the second target dummy behind it, but it just won't deal as much damage. But as you can see, if you miss it by ever so slightly a little bit, it won't hit at all. So you have to make sure that you always try and land your first ability, especially during the laning phase as well, because this will be your main damage output. And as mentioned, netted and trapped enemies will always deal full damage. So the combo that you normally want to do with your first ability is do EQ and then auto attack afterwards to get the headshot passive damage. That's just a really simple combo. You can do the same with W as well. You W, Q, and then auto attack afterwards. So there's a few little combos there that you can give a try, and that can help you out quite a lot. For the second ability, we have Yordle Snap Trap, which sets a trap that enemy champions can spring, immobilizing them for just under 2 seconds and revealing them for a short duration. Traps last 30 seconds, and 5 traps can be active at once. So you've seen the traps ever so, seen them ever so quickly. You can see the traps takes a few seconds to reveal and to trap the enemies. But the main thing you want to do with the traps is mainly use them in choke points. So when you're walking around the map and you see that the dragon's about to come up, for example, you can use your traps around these choke points, which means that it will be really, really hard for the enemy team to walk past these traps. You can see that this is just a quick example of how you can use your traps. So when they walk towards the traps, or when they get triggered by the traps, you can just auto attack at long range with your headshot, just to deal that little bit of extra damage. And also when you kite as well, when you're moving backwards and when you're kiting and auto attacking, if you press the ability, so if you just press it once and if you don't aim it, the trap will always be underneath you. As you can see here, the trap will always be underneath you. So that means when you're kiting backwards, every single time you put a trap underneath you, you can kind of make sure that the enemy champions are going in a certain direction. So for example, if I was walking along here, and if I was kiting backwards and someone was there, I could put a trap here, and I could maybe put another trap here as well, and then as I'm kiting backwards, it'll be hard for like a Renekton, for example, to walk past these traps. So really helpful tool that you could just tap the ability and it will just happen right in front of you. But like I said, most of the time you want to manually aim it just to try and hit it. Moving on to the third ability, we have the 90 caliber net, which launches a net, knocking Caitlyn backwards, and the net deals magic damage and slows by 50% for just under 2 seconds. So as you've seen before, you can use the net to get the headshot damage on your passive if you really want to. You can also do this the other way around. So say for example, if the enemy is just out of range, you can use the net to push Caitlyn towards the enemy instead, which is very risky, but you can do it this way if you really want to. But most of the time you want to just save your net as like a kiting tool, so you can use your net and then you can use like your trap afterwards as well to kind of kite a little bit backwards. Now there is a quick combo that you could do. It is a very, very hard combo to do, but it can work sometimes, especially trying to get like that double headshot from the passive. So what you do is you use your third ability, and as your third ability, as you're moving, you can quickly use your second ability within range. So if I do E and then W straight afterwards, you can see I can get 3 auto attacks really, really quickly. It's a really, really hard combo to do. I wouldn't recommend doing it most of the time because you have to manually aim your second ability. So you have to net manually aim your second ability, and like you see, sometimes you can't do it in time and sometimes you just get too far away. So it's a really, really hard combo to do, but it's a very, very good combo as well because you could deal a lot of bonus damage with your headshot passive. Another great thing about the net as well is that you can go over walls, as you can see here. So if you get into a sticky situation, say I'm in this bush, for example, I can use the net to not only get the headshot passive and try and land it on the enemies, but I can also use this to dash over walls as well at the same time. You can dash over multiple walls. Some walls are a lot harder to dash over. Lastly, we have Caitlyn's ultimate, which is Ace in the Hole, which lines up the perfect shot, revealing an enemy for just under 2 seconds before dealing physical damage and also dealing bonus damage depending on how much missing health they have. So you need to make sure you use this ultimate when the enemies are low on health, basically as an execute ability. Enemy champions can intercept the bullet before it hits the ally. So that's also an important thing as well, is when you're playing against Caitlyn. Most of the time you can block the ultimate. So say if I use the ultimate on the furthest target dummy here, you can see that instead of the furthest target dummy taking damage, it's the one in front. So it's always the first enemy champion that is hit. But as you can see, the range is very, very long. You can see I can do it all the way from here. It will reveal the enemy and it will also deal a lot of damage as well. But as it mentions, it will deal more damage depending on how much missing health the enemy champions have. So make sure that you use your combos, you use your abilities really well, and then afterwards you can use your ultimate to just finish the enemies off with that little bit of execute damage. Taking a quick look at the skill order for Caitlyn, at level 1, you want to go for your first ability. This is your main ability that's going to be doing a lot of poke damage during the laning phase. You could try and hit it at level 1, but most of the time you want to wait really until you hit level 2 or level 3. At level 2, you can pick out of the two really. You can go for your second ability or third ability depending on the matchup. Third ability is a very defensive tool. You can use this to escape really bad situations, or you can go for your second ability and try and land traps, and if you do land a trap, you can combo that with your first ability. Now level 3, you want to go for your third ability, and then the first ability you want to max is your first ability, because as mentioned already, this is your main damage tool when it gets into the early game, even the mid and the late game as well, but it will still be doing a lot of damage. And then after this, you actually want to max your second ability. The reason why you max your second ability is that you can have more traps available and the charge time is lowered, which means that when you put your traps down, it will take less time until the enemies can be trapped and be revealed. So that means that you can use your traps a lot sooner and use them a lot quicker, which means that you can trap the enemies and also trigger your headshot passive. And then for your third ability, you want to go for your third upgrade, you want to go for your third ability, and then making sure you obviously upgrade your ultimate when possible. So that's everything with Caitlyn. Hopefully you enjoyed this quick guide. I'm going to take you all through gameplay now of Caitlyn, show you through tips and tricks in the game. As always, stay safe, and I will see you all in a bit. Peace. Alright, on to the gameplay with Caitlyn we go. I think I might have to mute this at the start because for some reason the bit donations and everything, yeah. For some reason I haven't fixed that. I thought I fixed it before, but I guess I haven't fixed it, unfortunately. But yeah, with Caitlyn, really, really strong early game champion. As mentioned, has one of the highest base attack damage range in the entire game. And you can use your traps and you can use your nets and your other abilities to do quite a lot of damage in the early laning phase. I think a couple of tips I would give for you for Caitlyn in the laning phase is that when you have your headshot up and available, I don't think you'll see it here, but when you do have your headshot up and available, you always want to look to try and land your headshot. As you saw the end of the, you had the end of the bit donation there. Every single time you have your passive up and available, you always want to try and walk forward and use your passive to do a little bit of poke damage. Because it does deal bonus physical damage. It does help you quite a bit as well. You can see I didn't really do it in this instance because we're kind of pushed back in the laning phase. Quite funny part here is that Kai'Sa walked on top of my trap, so I I can just auto attack afterwards. But with all the shields and heals that Lulu offers, it doesn't really mean that much. But yeah, you'll see me doing this throughout the entire game. Really, is that when I have my headshot available, especially in the laning phase, you'll see that I'll try and walk up and I'll try and use my auto attack with the headshot to try and deal a little bit of extra damage. With the traps as well, the cool thing about the traps is you can always use it to kind of make sure you know where your enemy where the enemy champion is moving, if that makes sense. You can kind of affect the movement of the enemy champion by using your traps and use it in that way. You see we're in a bit of a little bit of an early exchange here. Try to kill the Olaf. Unfortunately, we cannot do enough damage. Caitlyn doesn't do like a crazy amount of damage in the early game, and it can be a little bit of a struggle. Like I said, she's more of a lane bully than anything else. She can't really do that much early game damage, especially against the likes of like a Lulu Olaf, for example, which is a combo that the enemy team is running this game. So unfortunately, First Blood did go over to the Olaf. I should say. I was trying to think what the name was called there, but we'll go over to the Olaf. You can see I'm trying to use my my first ability here to try and poke down the Lulu. I'm also using my auto attacks as well to keep my distance. And yeah, you can see here that I don't really know how to explain that, to be honest. That's just me using my range and using my auto attack spacing to be able to just easily get a kill, I guess. And there you go. And then there I use my net the opposite way. I kind of want to go back actually to explain what kind of crazy situation that was. So you can see that Seraphine went back to base here. Olaf, for some reason, was looking for a tower dive. We saw him on the ward. So you can see that I'm just using my first ability. I'm using my auto attacks. And every time Lulu steps up, you can see I can just use my auto attacks really, really easily. I get my headshot here as well to deal more damage. They try and tower dive me, but I have no idea what I'm doing. But this is the part that I want to show afterwards. You can see how I use my net the opposite way. So I use my net towards the tower so I can jump there. And then I can flash, I can auto attack and use my first ability. And then we can kill off Kai'Sa. So easy triple kill. Very, very interesting tower dive by the enemy team. But it just shows that you can use your net also the other way. And you don't always have to use it in a way that you kind of... How can I explain? You don't really need to use it in a way that you're always going to jump away from the enemy. You can always use it the other way around as well. It's very risky, but obviously in that situation, it was kind of easy to do, to be honest with you. As you can see, as we go back here, we're going to go for our Infinity Edge. I'm not too sure if I waited or not. No, I didn't wait in base. That's one of them situations where it's like, do you wait in base for 50 gold or do you just try and get back to lane as soon as possible? Because the more you wait in base, obviously you might lose minions, you might lose experience as well. Seraphine's going towards the mid lane. As you can see, I already lost a minion, and that was without me waiting for Infinity Edge. So I probably probably would have lost a few minions, so I probably would have lost quite a lot of experience as well. So the cool thing about Caitlyn as well is that you can play very, very safe in 1 versus 2 situations like this, for example. If my Seraphine's roaming around, you can see my auto attack range is huge, so I can just keep staying back. I keep using my abilities to push out the lane and look to try and roam around the map. Kai'Sa has nowhere near as much attack range as Caitlyn. So like I said, in the early game is kind of where you need to get an advantage with Caitlyn because of the long range that you have, but she just doesn't really do a lot of damage. You can see that I don't only have like a few traps available at the moment. So I put one trap in the kind of choke point between the jungle and the blue buff. The jungle and the dragon, sorry. The enemy jungle and the dragon. I didn't really do that much, but as you can see, I was just there to just zone away the Lulu and the Kai'Sa so they couldn't walk up towards the dragon. I was just using my auto attacks, using my abilities to make sure they can't walk up and they can't steal the dragon. So there's a trade in objectives. We get the dragon and they get the Rift Herald. You can see Seraphine is still roaming, but again, I'm Caitlyn. I'm completely fine in a 1 versus 2 situation. You can see that at this point in the game, my first ability pretty much clears all the minions, and as you can see, they can't push the tower at all. So again, using your first ability to make sure that you can clear the minion wave. Most of the time, you want to try and hit the champion as well at the same time if you can. But sometimes it doesn't really work out. There's actually someone in a bush. I'm not too sure if they walked away or not. I actually can't remember this game too much, to be fair. I remember that tower dive. That tower dive at the time when I was recording this, I was like, what are they doing? I missed kind of minion there. Don't do that. Don't miss kind of minion. Yeah, at the time of the tower dive, I was like, really? Like, what are you doing? But yeah, Olaf's getting a little bit scary this game. Not a very, very pleasant situation to be in. I'll be totally honest with you. But still, we're in a decent spot this game. 3-0. The kills are 6 and 8. We did get the dragon. They did get the Rift Herald. You can see that I'm trying to rotate mid here because they're trying to get the mid lane tower. They might drop the Rift Herald. And Seraphine's down in the bot lane anyway. For some reason, they don't use Rift Herald. I feel like Olaf should have used Rift Herald here to try and break down the mid lane tower. But instead, he just decided not to use it for some reason. Not really too sure why. But Seraphine's fine down in the Jura lane by herself at the moment. You can see that I'm trying to roam up to try and help the Akali here. Trying to 1v1 the Yasuo. I could use my ultimate here, but yeah, I was trying to use my ultimate, but Kali got the execute anyway. And instead of using it mid lane, Olaf instead went up to top lane, which for some reason, Seraphine is also going up to top lane, so they're leaving bot lane tower completely exposed, but Lee Sin's coming to help out anyway, so we're in a pretty fine spot, to be honest. So yeah, top-sided map is not going too great for us. Seraphine is roaming around the map, but not really doing anything with roaming around the map at the moment. she got like a few advantages, but in that situation, it's just like, why would you roam top lane when the tower's already gone, you know? So yeah, a little bit of a tough situation, but hey, I'm 3-0. I'm still in a really, really good spot. I know Lee Sin is coming here, so I can try and play a little bit more aggressive. Unfortunately, I can't get any more damages down because of Lulu's flash. Yeah, I mean, in the laning phase, if you play with the aggressive support, say like Thresh, Alistar, Blitzcrank, you can actually look to chain the crowd control as well. So say, for example, if a Blitzcrank hook lands, you can use your traps after that to kind of chain CC. So when Blitzcrank pulls and knocks up, if you know where that champion is going to land, you can use the your traps afterwards to kind of land it really, really easily. So you can see we're going for a little bit of a tower dive here. Kai'Sa is very, very low on health. I flash forward to try and get the kill, but yeah, unfortunately it didn't really work out. I'm not too sure if it was a heal. It might have been Triumph as well. I'm not actually too sure. But for some reason, I didn't get a kill, and for some reason, it's kind of backfired quite a lot. So as you can see, like the Olaf's getting even more fed now, trying to dive on top of the Seraphine. Gets the kill onto Seraphine as well, as there is another bit donation by Tommy. For some reason, I don't know why, but it's not like it's not paused. I mean, it's not being able to cancel it out, which is a little bit annoying because I thought I fixed it, but I guess I didn't. So you can see that I'm trying to kill Olaf here. I've still got my barrier and everything available. Olaf does kill me, but I do get that 600 gold shutdown, which is pretty huge. So I kind of made a little bit of a mistake there where I walked kind of too close to the Olaf. I was kind of trying to bait him in a way. I walked really, really close, so he was able to use his first ability and his third ability. If I kept my auto attack spacing, which is really important for Caitlyn, so if I stayed back and if I used my long range, I probably would have been able to kill Olaf without him killing me. So a few little mistakes here and there, but I think that's one of the most important things with Caitlyn is auto attack spacing. You need to make sure that you're using your range to your advantage, because if you don't, then you know, champions that have short range and melee champions, especially bruisers as well in the current meta, will take advantage of that, and they'll just jump on top of you really, really easily. So we're at the stage of the game now where we got two items. We got the Infinity Edge, we got the Static Shiv, so we will be getting our Energized Stacks. The Energized Stacks are at the bottom of your screen. You see next to that little dragon icon. You can see as I'm auto-attacking and moving around, I'm getting Energized Stacks. And when the Energized Stacks go up to 100, my next auto-attack will proc Static Shiv. And the good thing as well is that Static Shiv and Rapid Fire Cannon also stack on top of each other. So you actually get like double the damage in a way. You also get the extra range as well from Rapid Fire Cannon, which is quite nice. So yeah, it actually works pretty well. See, Olaf's going a little bit deep here, to be fair. Not really doing too much. The Seraphine ultimate lands as well on top of my headshot trap at the same time, which is quite nice. I kind of messed up the combo a little bit there, to be honest. I didn't think that Olaf would step on my trap. So I tried to net and then Q and auto attack afterwards to try and land the combo. Which is kind of like the basic combo with Caitlyn. Is like EQ, then auto attack. Third ability, then first ability, and then auto attack, I should say. But Kai'Sa, again, for some reason, stepping onto my trap like she did in the laning phase. As you can see, you do a lot of damage if you get that headshot passive damage down. I'm going to use this to try and push down into the base as well. River's going to try and jump on top of us, but we're going to use our nets and our traps and all of our poke, as you can see, to just create our distance and make sure that we can kite all the way backwards and try and survive as much as we can, but unfortunately we die. So again, a little bit of an overstep, but Akali's jumping on the back line, trying to get a few kills, but unfortunately isn't able to. And Olaf is just running like a madman this game. You can see how much damage he's doing as well at the same time. But Dyna's here to try and clean up, but not being able to defend the mid lane tower. But yeah, Olaf with Lulu, it's still pretty annoying to deal with, to be fair. Still really, really annoying to deal with, so we have to see how that plays out, because Olaf is a champion that Caitlyn doesn't really do too well with. Caitlyn doesn't really deal too well with champions that could just easily jump on top of her. So like Assassins, Olaf, champions that could basically reduce the range between yourself and the enemy champion. So, like I said, I mean, Caitlyn's scaling is okay. It's not the best, but it's also not the worst. Like I said, the only problem with Caitlyn is that she doesn't really use Solari Charge Blade too well, because most of her abilities have a long cooldown. So it is a bit of a annoying factor. You can see here I get myself into a pretty difficult situation again, as good old Doom raids me. But as you can see, I'm playing around my traps. I'm moving around in like a 360 circle there around my traps. I kind of want to go back to explain that again, to be fair, as you'll probably hear Doom's message again. So you can see I'm in a bit of a bad situation because Yasuo is going to jump on top of me. So what I do is I use my trap, and then what I do is I put the trap in between myself and Yasuo. So as I'm moving around, you can see I'm moving around in a 360-degree circle. So I'm making sure that the trap is always between me and Yasuo. And even though he puts up the wind wall, he knows he can't step onto the trap. I dodge the tornado at the same time. And as you can see, it actually works really, really well for us. Because that means that Yasuo can't keep going forward and can't keep using all his abilities and dashing forward because he won't be able to do enough damage. And as you can see, Lee Sin was able to catch him out and get a kill. Most of the time, I wouldn't really say to play over-aggressive, especially in the mid lane like that when you don't have a mid lane tower. But we played it pretty well, and that's a really good way of explaining how you can play that really, really well. So when it goes... When we take a look at this now, we have to take a look and see what will happen when it comes to the late game. I mean, it's 17 to 19. We're behind on kills. But the really important thing is that we're quite strong. That's always the important thing. As long as you feel confident and you're quite strong yourself, then you'll be completely fine. So as you can see, laning phase is pretty much over now. Most of the time we're just in the mid lane, just trying to clear the mid wave as soon as possible. There's a bit of a fight happening down in the bot lane. Riven's up in the top lane as well, so I can't really do too much. By the time I get down to the bot lane, unfortunately, there's not really nothing that we can do. So what I'm doing here instead is I'm moving up to the top lane. I'm going to try and clear this out so then Riven can't really do too much. So we're using this to clear out the waves. So that means Riven's not going to get any more towers. You can see in the bot lane as well, they're not getting any towers for it. So even though they're getting kills, they're not really getting any towers, which is quite nice. Because when you lose inhibitors, I feel like that's a really, really... bad disadvantage when it happens. We'll have to see how that works out. The dragon's up in 10 seconds. Again, I'm always looking to try and get that mid lane priority at this stage of the game. Try and get as much damage down as I can and as much wave clear as possible, which Caitlyn doesn't have the best wave clear. I mean, you have your first ability in Static Shiv, but that's about it. But I want to go back to base now for the rapid fire cannon, but it seems like there's a fight that's just about to happen. And as you can see straight away, I was looking to try and put traps around the choke points. But instead, I'm just kiting the Riven. And instead, the Riven is trying her hardest to try and jump onto me. But as you can see, I'm using my traps forward. I'm using my net. I'm using my other abilities as well. And as you can see, when you put your traps down between yourself and the enemies, it's really, really hard for them to push forward. And really, really hard for them to actually, you know, really do anything, to be fair. Because... if they land onto the traps, they're going to get rooted. They're going to get, you know, they're going to get a lot of damage taken to them as well because of the extra passive damage that you get from headshot. And there you go. We win the team fight. I'm not actually too sure if we took the dragon. Maybe I have to look that back. I don't think we took the dragon, but we still won the team fight, which is still pretty good. I mean, you take the team fight win, especially when you're down behind on kills and also towers as well at the same time. You can see that there are towers being taken by the Lee Sin, which is quite good. I went for Protobot this game instead of Stasis, just because they have loads of dashes and everything available. You know, Riven, they have Olaf as well, which could be quite annoying. Yasuo as well, so all these dashes. So if I can use my Protobot to increase the distance and kind of help me kite back, then it will help me out a lot. Obviously, it doesn't help a lot against Olaf because Olaf can still run onto me. But to be honest, it will still be completely fine. But stasis is not really too helpful. It can help a little bit, but by the time I use stasis, that means the rest of the team can just jump on top of me. You know, I stasis when Olaf jumps on top of me. That means that Riven can reduce her distance, Kai'Sa can reduce her distance, and even Yasuo as well. And if they time it well, then they can kill me. So you can see that at the moment our Baron laner is getting a little bit caught out. We're trying to roam up to try and help out. Somehow Akali is still alive throughout this whole situation. You can see I'm trying to use my traps over the wall, and I'm trying to auto-attack as much as possible. I'm trying to kill this Riven, and as you can see, I use my net the opposite way again to get the kill and to reduce the distance between me and Riven. So even though a little bit of an overextension by the enemy team, we were able to capitalize on that mistake. You can see my attack speed's getting up there as well. My attack speed is quite a lot. So it is, it's quite good, to be fair. It's going quite well. So we're going to go back to base now. We're going to pick up the Mortal Reminder, so we get the healing reduction. I think I could have gone for Executioner's Calling earlier this game if I wanted to, because they do have Olaf, they do have Yasuo that's healing, Kai'Sa's healing, so if I was to change anything this game, I probably would have gone Executioner's Calling before, which is only 1,000 gold. I think that's one thing to note, is that if the enemy team does have a lot of healing, then going Executioner's Calling for 1,000 gold is 100% worth it. And now I'm going to go for red buff, because I want to get as much damage as I can. Most of the time at this point of the game, you want to leave your ADC the red buff. And now we're in a bit of a stalemate. We just need to make sure that we have vision around objectives. The Elder Dragon's coming up very, very soon. So our main objective in these fights is just to stay back. We need to stay back as much as possible. Staying near the Seraphine as well is also good. That means we can get the extra shields and heals. But unfortunately, our Akali gets a little bit caught out. I didn't mean to auto-attack here, but you can see I'm putting my traps down as kind of a zoning tool again. And this is where Yasuo gets caught out, unfortunately. But even after Yasuo getting caught out, I still somehow nearly die as well, because he was able to land the tornado. As you can see here, I'm able to create my distance. I'm able to use my proto belt, use my net, and use my flash and pretty much everything as well. And I'm able to kite back. And there you go. We get another quick kill there onto the Kai'Sa. So again, even though we got caught out by the Yasuo wind wall, because we have flash, proto belt, and net, that's 3 dashes away that we can use. It actually worked out pretty well for us. The Olaf's trying to overextend here. The good thing is when people use Guardian Angel or Stasis, you can actually put a trap underneath it, just like that. A little bit of a tip there. And when you put traps underneath like that, you'll be able to easily get headshot damage and easily root the enemies. So putting Stasis against a Riven, against the Caitlyn, not really the best thing to do. You can see Riven's trying to use her ultimate, but again, we use our trap, we use our nets, which helps out. So most of the time when you use your traps, you want to manually aim them, and you always want to aim them towards the enemy champion. So that's kind of the main factor there of trying to use your traps, because obviously if you press your traps, they're just going to go underneath you each time. They're not going to be able to do anything else. So the Elder Dragon is up. This is the point of the game where pretty much everything can change. We can either win or lose the game, but Akali gets a really nice pick. And as you can see here with my traps, I'm pretty much doing the exact same traps that I said in the tutorial part with all the abilities. I'm using it in the choke points. That means that they can't really do too much and the enemies can't come towards the dragon. So we're able to use that really, really well. And now we have Elder Infernal Dragon. The game's pretty much over. I think at this point of the game, when you have Elder Infernal, there's not really much that the enemy team can do about it. We're just going to push down mids because we have this minion wave and we do have the advantage still. The Seraphine ultimate's a little bit wide, to be fair. You see Riven again tries to jump on top of me, but I use my net before Riven can use all of her abilities. Lee Sin kicks him back. Olaf tries to run in. Unfortunately, nothing can be done, and that is game over. So a few little mistakes in the early game that I just I explained earlier on in the game. But when it comes to mid and late game, you can really see how Caitlyn's range and Caitlyn's headshot damage can be really, really beneficial. And it can help quite a lot. So when looking at the damage overall as well, I think I did quite a lot of damage, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to wait and see if the damage shows. There you go, 31,000 damage overall. So not as much as Akali, who kind of popped off, and not as much as Olaf, but still showing that Caitlyn can still be really, really strong in the mid and late game. But again, it's all about getting that early advantages because you have the range advantage and because all your abilities can do quite a lot of damage. But anyway, that is it for today's guide. Thank you all for tuning in. As always, stay safe and make sure you stay tuned for the next Wild Rift guide. Take care. Peace.